Oh, yeah, the Steve and Matt Show.
Let's talk about two-pick, Steve.
Two-pick. First, let's talk about us. We are Steve and Matt, host of the Data Centric Podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Who are you? Are you Steve or Matt?
I'm Steve McDowell, Principal Analyst.
Ooh, look at you. I'm Matt Kimball.
Are you also a Principal Analyst?
I'm a Principal Analyst. I'm a bunch of things.
That's an excerpt from the Data Centric Podcast, featuring Matt Kimball, Principal Data Center Analyst at More Insights and Strategy, and Steve McDowell, now Chief Analyst at NAND Research. It ran 6 seasons from 2018 to 2023 for more than 100 episodes and covered enterprise IT and data centers. This is the Tech Barometer Podcast. I'm Jason Lopez. One of the reasons their conversations work so well is because they're not pretending to do a point-counterpoint, and at the same time, they're not pretending to be friends, as evidenced in exchanges like this at .next 2026 before they knew we'd hit the record button.
So you're agreeing with me. Thank you.
I think I said that. I think you tried to repeat what I said, but make it more contrarian. See, this is why we'll never be married. Or this is why we should be married. I don't know, one or the other.
I miss our podcast.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's good.
But once they did know, here's what we got. A wide-ranging discussion from the idea of their doing a podcast to begin with, to whether AI is in a bubble, to the evolution of data centers in 3 short years since their last data-centric podcast.
We used to do these things regularly, right?
Yeah.
So it's been about 3 years or so,
Yeah.
almost to the day, actually.
Yes.
Since we last did one of these podcasts. And we were talking about things like cooling, sustainability, and we were talking about chips as well. How much has the world changed in the last 3 years?
We were way ahead of our time. Last time we were talking about why the world might need liquid cooling and the potential.
Yep.
Now, we kind of backed the wrong horse on that one, but the next generation of servers are going to be liquid cooled top to bottom.
Yep.
Right? AI's enabled that. Jensen said you can't, have you seen the power numbers for Rubin?
Oh, yeah.
They're coming up on 2 kilowatt.
Yep.
Right? So, immersion cooling has taken over the world. You can't go to a show now without looking at spigots coming out of the back of your rack.
Yeah.
It still gives me the shivers. And that's given permission, I think, for the CPU guys to also up their amperage. So when they start merging these things, they're not capped by watts anymore, right? So Moore's law kind of comes back a little bit.
It's funny, though, because a lot of what we were talking about was leading up to where we're at today. And you're right.
Well, Matt, as industry analysts, we're paid to look forward, son. If we can't predict 2 years in the future with 70% probability, we need to go back to our other jobs, right? I need to start writing code, and you start writing the requirements for that code.
Yeah, it's a different world. I'm not surprised at AI becoming more of a center focus. And by the way, we were talking about that during the liquid cooling discussion. I may be a little surprised at kind of how unsettled it is in the enterprise still.
We're still waiting for that killer app for the enterprise. AI is changing how a lot of our SaaS offerings work.
Yeah.
I'm doing observability differently. Cybersecurity has completely changed how I do cyber, right, on both sides of that wall. But those are things, as an enterprise guy, I'm buying from Palo Alto or whomever, or Oracle. Why do I need inference in the enterprise outside of the apps I'm using? The only killer app we found so far is IT ops and software development. I'm not going to build a cluster for that.
Is it that we haven't found the killer app, or we're just not able to enable the killer app?
No. I go on Reddit and I read Reddit. It's where an industry analyst gets his best source of information.
You're an old...
I read all of the things around IT. People are doing experiments with AI, and the number one question I see in all of these forums is, all right, I built this agentic rack. Now what the hell do I do with it? Right?
Oh.
I'm building virtual assistant. How much email summarization do I need?
I will tell you this. I don't necessarily buy into people who have built agentic environments and don't know how they're going to extract value
I did.
out of them.
I have one.
In your one-man
I have
shop?
one, and every day it just sends me a news summary, right?
Sure. Are you...
I'm not going to buy a GPU for that.
Are you trying to do supply chain optimization? Are you trying to...
If I'm doing supply chain optimization, am I going to... I don't even know supply chain software. Am I going to my ERP system should have that built in? How much am I rolling my own on supply chain optimization?
I think you're going to have master agents that work with folks in the organization.
I think I'm going to buy those from my logistics software provider. I don't think I'm writing them as an IT guy.
Oh, I think you are a wholly optimistic kind of guy.
I am.
I think you're looking at this in a super kind of reductive way. And you're assuming that SAP is going to be SAP.
Yes.
And that
absolutely.
And that they're going to have the same footprint in the enterprise 10 years from now that they do today.
Maybe it'll be a different SAP. It'll be SAP's follow-on, SAP Prime. I don't think I'm doing it internally.
No, but you might be buying an agentic-based system from another company.
Oh, 100%.
Where's that sit,
It's
son?
in
your agentic rack.
How much software am I running on-prem right now?
It depends.
Right. I'm
Depends
buying
on the
that as
company.
a SaaS.
Depends on the company.
I'm buying it as a SaaS. And
Okay.
if I run it on-prem, I don't know.
All right.
I'll buy a beefy server from Dell.
All right.
And I say all this, Dell has a $50 billion backlog in AI
They
servers.
most certainly do, don't they? By the way, anybody who's on Reddit trying to develop an IT strategy has a
No, but
credit
that's where they go to vent.
that goes to Vent.
I think I'm relying on my software vendors to give me this because I have enough headaches.
Okay.
So is AI a bubble?
No.
Is any part of AI a bubble?
Yes. I think the chip craze is a bubble. It's going to burst at some point, but that's a maturity thing, right? Companies are absolutely overinvested in NVIDIA, absolutely overinvested in AMD, and eventually that's going to level out.
Are they overinvesting in data centers?
No. Look, was the internet bubble in the late 90s into 2000, was that a bubble or was that just a
Pieces of it were.
normalization?
No, exactly. I look at it in the same way, but in a more compressed time frame.
Yes.
Right? I
Yes.
mean, the dot-com bubble was, we had a technology that ultimately proved that it was transformational.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
changed everything we do. But at the time, we overinvested in what we thought would be short-term gains. That was the bubble. I think AI is similar. It's a transformational technology. It's going to change how we do everything. But there are pockets where we're overinvesting. You talked about NVIDIA chips, right? I think whatever processor we're going to end up using for inference, that's wide open. So NVIDIA might be in a little bit of a bubble in certain markets, but not as a whole.
Agree. Yeah.
Memory is clearly in a bubble right now. It's not sustainable. Although I might redefine normal, because I don't know that if I were a memory company, I'm going to let the prices come back down all the way, right?
Let me ask you though, I mean, because this is interesting, right? Because memory is priced high because of supply chain. That's the reason why, right? When I think of bubble, I think of overpriced because of hype. So is memory really in a bubble, or is it? Go ahead, sir.
No, I mean, there's some artificial inflation, right? And yes, there's scarcity, but it's also a balance, right? The memory companies are prioritizing HBM and DDR5 to solve AI infrastructure problems. So I guess if you believe that AI infrastructure at that scale, data center scale, is a bubble, the memory's a bubble. But if you don't, then maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just supply chain scarcity.
So when I think of bubble, I think of pets.com. I think of books.com. I think of these great ideas that had no real business behind them and no real revenue behind them.
Oh, then no, I don't see that in AI. Outside of my image generator software I use to make funny videos. Yeah.
So if there is a bubble, it's a bubble that's created because of supply chain, first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
If there was enough NVIDIA chips out there, if TSMC could pump out enough chips and pump out enough, and Samsung and TSMC could pump out enough memory, then we wouldn't see these prices that we're seeing today.
Fair enough.
But so let's talk about bubble, okay? So talking about storage, right? Let's look at some of these data companies and these incredible valuations they have, right? They're very highly priced, and when you look at normal kind of, pricing to revenue ratios, they're valued a lot higher than they probably should be, and it's because of anticipation.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't know that AI moves the needle on storage at all, honestly. And I mean, yeah, there's some data management problems we have to go solve. And the companies that are solving those just because they're attached to AI are seeing inflated valuations 100%.
That to me is a bubble.
And even, you talk about NetApp and Dell and AI factory storage, they're not making a nickel right now, right?
No.
They're just, right. So
even as, they get pulled into this, like, let's focus more on data because that's kind of the shiny object, right? Even as they do that, they're still at the end of the day selling storage.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I like the data stuff because it has secondary benefit of it's a smarter way to manage my enterprise, regardless where that data is going to land.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a step function for storage guys. But you're right. I think some of the AI specific storage companies, yeah, their valuations across the board are just really high.
They're very high, but you've got some publicly and not publicly traded companies that are in that AI data space that have valuations that, I think you and I were having this conversation a few weeks ago about when you were at a startup before, a lot of money invested was $10 million, $20 million. So you got $100 million, it was crazy. You're seeing
billions, yeah.
Billions of dollars being invested and tens of billions of dollars in valuations for companies that are not generating the revenue that would necessarily warrant that valuation.
So if I'm an IT guy and I'm building out infrastructure for AI, do I avoid the ones I think are overvalued in a bubble because either they're not going to go away or they're going to be consolidated? Should I worry about that? Should I make the safe bet and call the guys I've always called for storage and compute? When do you roll the dice on somebody you think is overvalued? You used to run a data center.
That's a tough one. When you think about enterprise IT, they're a conservative bunch, right? When it comes to adopting technology. And you know this. We go with what we know, we go with what's proven, and we go with what we know is not be supported over time. In order for me to go with a new entry, there has to be something super compelling. There has to be that killer app for that thing that I'm going to bring into my data center.
Or I have to need it right now.
Or I have to need it right now, and my trusted vendor does not have it. And that's the question, right? Are we at that point? And is there something Dell doesn't do that another company does, or a NetApp doesn't do that one of these newer company does? And do I actually need it? That's the other. I'll be sold on needing it, but do I really need it at the end of the day?
The neoclouds might need it, but as an enterprise guy.
Neoclouds are interesting. So how do you see storage in the neoclouds and data in the neoclouds? Because they're different than the hyperscalers, right? They're more like a large enterprise in the way they deploy, a very large enterprise. But it's AI from the ground up. It's very bespoke architecture.
The only place AI touches storage in a meaningful way right now is on KV cache to give me a larger context window and minimize my GPU resources. If I'm a neocloud, I have other things I care about around multi-tenancy and distributed namespaces and things like that the CSPs, the AWSs of the world, figured out a long time ago, right, and are using internal solutions. When you look at some of these software stacks that neoclouds are deploying, whether it's Weka or VAST, they're duplicating a lot of functionality that already exists in the public cloud. Take AI out of the equation, these neoclouds just have to solve a cloud storage problem.
Yeah.
These guys like Weka and VAST and DDN come out of the HPC world, so they know how to do big distributed storage.
Yeah.
And where you see VAST in particular kind of innovating is around how to make that friendly for a cloud-like multi-tenant environment. But I don't think that's related to AI.
Speaking of the VASTs and the Wekas and the DDNs, tie this to Nutanix, right? We see announcements from Nutanix around partnerships with NetApp.
Oh, yeah.
With Dell, with Everpure. They have a strong partnership with Lenovo. We don't hear about how Nutanix works with a Weka or a VAST. Part of it is because they're not in that market segment.
They're not in the
right?
enterprise.
Right. But there is aspiration for these companies to be in the enterprise.
That'll happen over time. I think Nutanix has taken a very deliberate approach to their partnership. They came out of the gate with Dell and Pure. This conference, they announced NetApp. I think we all know that the NetApp products trickle down into Lenovo. They're solving an enterprise problem. For Nutanix to grow out of its kind of HCI heritage, it's a problem they have to solve. Mm-hmm. I mean, say what you will about VMware, but vVols and vSAN, valuable technologies. If I'm going to move forward from that legacy kind of infrastructure, I have to go solve those problems. And why they're not working with Weka and VAST and DDN, they're not in the same markets today. I think, Nutanix is ultimately going to wind up in NeoCloud. It's a natural next step for them. And, we both talk to Weka and VAST and their ilk on a daily basis. They have enterprise aspirations. So eventually those two are going to meet. I think first we're going to see Nutanix and HPE, right? So they're kind of moving down the priority list of what impacts revenue in the nearest term. Right? It's a decision I would make.
Do you think there's a Nutanix play in the neoclouds?
Yeah. I mean, what Nutanix excels at is control plane for workloads. I have a vast number of resources. I need to manage workloads across them. I need a control plane that understands that and deals with that. So, the announcements that most excited me, and I think this points directly to a neocloud future at .next, is the bare metal options, the multi-tenancy, These are things that they have to have. Some IT departments also need that as you do more self-service. I don't know that the neoclouds are investing in that kind of control software.
You don't think they have their own tooling already?
I think they have some scaffolding. The neoclouds today, I think they look a whole lot more like an advanced rack space. They're renting full CPUs, full clusters. It's mostly bare metal. I don't know they're sharing a lot of resources, but as we move into the age of inference, I think they will, and they're going to have to solve that. Can I do that with KVM and Kubernetes? Maybe. But if I look at something like a Nutanix or even VMware Cloud, it gives me so much more. So I think that's a natural play.
There's also a lot of cost associated with that. The reason why the hyperscalers have moved to their own tooling is for cost. Well, cost because they have very bespoke architectures that require very bespoke tooling.
Well, more interesting conversation might be, do neoclouds exist in 5 years? Right? They rose up because of a GPU scarcity problem that may not exist as we move forward.
I think they do. I will say I've been a skeptic a long time of the Lambdas, the CoreWeaves,
I don't have an opinion yet.
I'm seeing CoreWeave, and when you look at their revenue mix shifting over the last few quarters and having conversations with them, I see the path. I kind of equate them to almost like an Oracle cloud. They built a very specific infrastructure for a very specific set of customers and use cases, and it works really well for them. And if you believe that inference is going to be the size that it's going to be, they're really well prepared to do that better than the major CSPs today.
But from an enterprise side, it's not always about the best technology or the best technical capabilities.
Agreed.
If I already have, I'm running Exadata at Oracle or I'm running RDS at AWS, why do I want to move that data back and forth just because they have a better GPU cluster? It's often about simplicity. But if I do, maybe I have a control plane like Nutanix that helps me migrate those workloads.
The reality, though, is most enterprises have their data everywhere, right? I mean, AWS
They prefer not to.
But they do, right? Yeah. And AWS, not just. They have an interconnect spec they created. Oracle just announced that they're supporting it. Google supports it. It's an open spec that the neoclouds are going to support it. So if I can move my data and minimize my latency and assure security, so on and so forth, does that being in 4 clouds distributed matter as much? But to what you're saying, though, a little bit, I'm going to go off on this a little bit, is when we talk about bubbles, right? Neoclouds are another example of bubbles. I think there are something like 200 neoclouds right now that are being tracked. 5 years from now, there ain't going to be 200 neocloud. And this is maybe more kind of aligned to the .com bubble. You're going to see a lot of these fade away. I think companies like CoreWeave that are expanding globally and are building out kind of this bigger footprint, they're going to do well. But there are a lot of these others that are getting investment and getting dollars just because.
Oh, I'm with you. I think CoreWeave ultimately is going to move and become more general purpose cloud-like, because that's what their customers want. Yeah. And maybe there's another CSP, and we're a little more distributed.
I think they'll become general purpose because AI will become that common in the enterprise, that AI workloads, because they're so normalized, CoreWeave and what they do becomes normalized. Not that they start taking on other kind of AWS, database as a service.
But the bulk of their money right now is not coming from any enterprise.
No, but it's starting to shift.
It's going to be training, and there'll always be a place for big training clusters, and I think that's where they're going to sit. But I don't know. I'll watch. It's early.
It's going to be fun.
Steve McDowell is Chief Analyst at NAND Research. Matt Kimball is Principal Data Center Analyst at More Insights and Strategy. Their show, Data Centric, ran for more than 100 episodes from 2018 to 2023. This is the Tech Barometer Podcast, produced by The Forecast. I'm Jason Lopez. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast and you want to discover more stories about technology, head on over to The Forecast by Nutanix. That's The Forecast by Nutanix, all one word, .com.